Welcome back to Voice of Students powered by Easy Jobs.
Local part-time seasonal jobs. So a lot of the time, individuals who own guns own them as an extra safety measure. So that being said, would any of you own a gun?
Yes, I would definitely own a gun.
Why?
And well, it's a part of my right, and because I feel like it would just another safety measure. Probably never gonna have to use it, but it'd be nice to have.
I don't think there's anything wrong with owning a gun to protect yourself, your loved ones, your home, and your property, as long as it is regulated and we can prevent guns from getting into the wrong hands. And I don't believe that it is appropriate to own any military-grade weapon. That being said, I don't necessarily think there is anything wrong with owning a gun, and I think that's great if you want to take those measures to protect yourself. However, for me, I don't feel it is necessary for me myself to be in possession of a gun, and I feel like I live in a very safe neighborhood, and I feel very safe and secure, and therefore I don't think it is, though it is my right and I do have the ability to own and possess a gun, I don't necessarily have the desire to.
So I don't know if it's always okay to underestimate just how safe an area is, because where I live personally, it is a very safe area, but my packages are still being stolen. So yeah, that's nice that it's advertised as a safe area, but you really never know what's going to happen. So
Absolutely. That being said, I still don't have a desire to own a gun, and I think that I can make my home safe in other ways, but I don't put it past anybody else who would like to utilize their Second Amendment's rights.
our society displays different acts of violence every single day, whether it's TV shows, on the news, in video games, or on the internet. Violence is pretty prevalent. So how much of a contribution would you say that has to violence that we experience?
It sure does desensitize us. I have done a little bit of research on it because I am interested in working with children and adolescents, and especially teenage boys. They love to play video games. There is a correlation between the amount of violent media one consumes and their aggressive behaviors that follow. However, this is a correlation and it is not necessarily indicative of causation, meaning that though these two things are correlated and it may seem that the more violence we consume, the more violent and aggressive we will be, it's very hard to state that one thing can cause another. In fact, it could be that individuals who are more aggressive and have more violent behaviors are more likely to consume this kind of media.
Well, I, for one, play a lot of violent video games, like every day, but I never really have the intention to go hurt other people or anyone else. I don't really see myself as aggressive. Personally, I think we were a lot more violent 300 years ago rather than now. I just think now it's just more media. They're like, oh, everyone's getting killed nowadays, you know? Back then, people were beheading each other left and right, you know?
That's true.
I think we kind of overlook the violence because I mean, like, yeah, there's a lot of nice things about violence, but sometimes violence makes things a little interesting when you want to watch something or you want to play something. You know, it adds a little, gas to the fire.
Yeah.
Currently, there is a prohibition against computerizing the National Gun Registry. Do you feel that this should be reversed, therefore allowing law enforcement agencies to efficiently track criminal gun activity?
Yes, I agree with that.
I think how we choose to regulate guns and gun control is more of a political issue.
Many things that are banned in our society are still seen and are still present, whether it's drug use, people drinking underage, it's still happening. So even if guns were to be banned, don't you think people are still going to be able to obtain these automatic weapons illegally?
Absolutely. If people want to get a gun, they're going to get a gun. If people wants to get drugs, they're going to get drugs.
I hear your argument, and I would also like to point to several things. First, if you look at the Parkland shooting, the perpetrator accessed a gun legally. He was able to get this gun through legal means, and you could say that this shooting could have been prevented if that were not the case. We do have regulations on things for a reason. It's not just a free-for-all. Certain illicit drugs are illegal for a reason.
But people are still getting them every day, multiple
I don't
times
think
a day.
right now it's more so of an issue of stopping it completely because unfortunately it's just really not like plausible, and just society in general. It's more so a way of finding different methods to prevent.
It is about regulation, and if
Yeah.
we do look to other countries, they have the same rate of mental illness as we do. However, they have been restricting access to guns. If you look at Australia for the past 20 or 25 years, I can't exactly remember, when they put a ban on certain types of guns and started enforcing stricter regulations, you haven't seen a mass shooting since. Whereas in this country, more children and teachers have died than active military personnel. And so to me, that shows a problem. When it comes time to regulation, you have certain laws for a reason.
Is there a realistic way to stop all this violence? How do we minimize it if we can't stop it?
Yes, there is no way to stop crime. We don't live in a utopian society. It's not possible to create. If it is, I'm not the right person to talk to you about that. However, I believe it is important to look to other countries that have minimized their gun violence. Just recently, there was a mass shooting in New Zealand, and the state took immediate actions against banning military-style weapons. I believe that is something our country can do. We look to Australia about 20, 25 years ago. There hasn't been a mass shooting since they took actions to regulate their guns. I don't think this is an issue of taking away someone's Second Amendment rights. I believe that anybody who is fit and able should be able to own a gun. Just like we regulate who can drive a car and you have a license, I think the same should apply for a gun. I shouldn't just be able to go and say, I want to buy a car, and I should be handed the keys. We have a class that you need to take. You need to pass a written exam. You need to pass a actual physical driving exam. We should have the same sort of regulations for our guns. My question is, why don't we?
I think that well, if you do the same regulations how Australia did, in England, like they just banned guns completely. I'm not sure how many people in those countries still own guns. I don't know if they took them all away, but I can't imagine here, police going around kicking doors in, trying to take people's guns. That's not going to go very well with the American people.
That's not what happened.
I know, but
So then how would we go about that then? Because it's very unrealistic to just get rid of
you
everything.
ban guns, but like, what do you do with the people that still have them?
Right.
Actually, in Australia and in New Zealand, they have a buyback program where the government actually buys back individuals' guns. The police never go around to kick anyone's door in. It was very cooperative activity. I believe it is just as important to regulate our guns as it is to regulate anything else that we have in our society. Individuals in the military receive months of training and how to handle their military-grade weapons. I think it's inappropriate and really disgraceful of us as Americans to just hand out a military-grade weapon to a 23-year-old individual who has no training whatsoever.
Okay, thanks so much. That brings us to the end of our segment. We hope that our society is free without gun violence soon.
Thanks so much, Megan, Gabrielle, and Vinny for being here with us today, and we'll be back next week with another great episode of The Voice of Students. Voice of Students, powered by Easy Jobs, local part-time seasonal jobs.